Hello folks, hope you're having a wonderful day, hope you're having a great middle of your week. We are on the way to the weekend right now, we're on the downward slope going towards the weekend, we're on Thursday. If you like what I do, the subscribe button is down below, and if you really like what I do, then you want to be involved in the prize draw that we're going to be doing on the 3rd of September, then all you need to do is be involved on the Patreon or be a member of the channel. Either way, you are supporting the channel financially, you're doing me a solid, and so you'll be entered into that prize draw on the 3rd of September. It will be for £100 worth of free models from Composite Games and a Repulsor battle tank. That is all for you. That is all on the way. So hopefully you get involved in that, you help out the channel, help us grow a little bit. If you're going to get any models, make sure you head over to Composite Games. They do a lot for the channel. So make sure you go over there to buy your models and use the promo code Northern Exile to get yourself 5% off at checkout. All the details are in the description below. Let's get started, shall we? Because this one, I'm going to say it's pretty much a sequel to Tuesday's video. Because I was racking my brains on Wednesday thinking, you know, what in the hell can I do about a video on Thursday? I've got nothing really hobby about to rant about right now. Or at least I'm not really in the mood for a rant. But then I started watching the video again, the video on Tuesday. I hate watching myself, it's horrible. But I watched the video on Tuesday, and I just went into the comments, and the amount of people who brought up the phenomenon that we're going to discuss in this video, and that is imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is essentially the evolved state of what we were talking about on Tuesday. Do you want to know how bad it can get? Yeah, stay with me. We'll go over a few examples. One thing I wanted to talk about as well, in the comment section of that video, people were discussing the lore that I wrote for the Iron Talons in a way that I've, already seen people discuss the actual lore in that way, when they're discussing theories and what can happen and things like that. That meant so much to me, like seeing you guys embrace that and say, I think it's this, or I think it's that, and really get into the lore that I was talking about in that video, and letting your minds run away with it. Just like you do with normal 40k stuff, that really lit a fire under me to finish that project. So I'm going to try and push on and finish that project, because, thank you very, 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 very much. I always feel like, linking into that, I always feel like I am not good enough to be in this hobby. Especially with my channel. So this video is it's about that, you know what I mean? It's a love letter, if you will, to the people who don't think they belong here. Not because they're bad people or have low self-confidence, but that they don't deserve to be adding to the lore with their own armies and ideas. This is a sequel to Tuesday, if you will. Let's explore imposter syndrome, the true curse of the creative mind, at least for me. So, as somebody who writes a lot, I think I actually have more to say about this topic when it comes to 40k than I do with the wider hobby. Which is why I focused on it so intently when making the video and writing scripts. You see, I have several large pieces of work sitting in my to-do pile. I get 40 to 60,000 words in, and then I just start all over again, desperate to chase that high of creating something that makes the light bulb in my head go off. I swear to you, there is nothing quite like that feeling. You can actually walk away from writing or working on a project, whether it's painting or whatever, and you're on cloud 9, and you don't need to come back to that project for a couple of days. You can let it stew, because you've broken it now, you've done it, right? You're on the way. That's what non-creative people don't really get, that process or that feeling. And that's why I'm kind of upset with them, to say the least. These are the guys who are able to paint Blood Angels and Space Wolves exactly as they are on the cover art of things, and they just get on with their day. Not me and you, though. Not the person watching this video, because what we do is we always try to do our own thing. We always try to express our creativity. We always try to make sure that the hobby is being used as a prism for our own creative powers. And in doing that, sometimes we go a bit off the rail, and sometimes we start to think that our work isn't worth doing. I'm struggling with this right now, in fact. I've created, right, I shit you not, something I'm actually quite proud of. I've created a wintry, cool, dark, gritty fantasy world with Nordic samurai, dead gods, mages that get their powers from literally snorting dragon bone dust like it's top grade narcotics, the whole shebang, right? It's cool. There are pieces of it that are normal fantasy though, and that gets me to sit back and think, can I do better? And so I stop, I step back, and I don't know if I'll ever head back to it to finish it. Then this seeps into 40k. Let's bring it all the way around to the hobby. I said on Tuesday that there are too many stories that need telling in Warhammer 40,000, and I hold to that. There are so many times that you open up a Word document or piece of lore you've been working on, and it just doesn't click, or worse, it doesn't read like Warhammer 40,000 lore. I'm going to give you a quick tip on how to write 40k lore, okay? And this will make it seem a lot more like 40k lore than any other technique you can do. Are you ready? Be, like that as in you, the writer, be an untrustworthy source. You have to make sure that your lore is coming across in a way that, yeah, you're telling some lore, but you're not just laying it out, A happened, then B happened, then C happened, then D happened. There has to be mystery. There has to be, lore that comes from us from 5,000 years ago, that kind of a thing. Even if the Marines that you're writing about have just been made in the Indomitus Crusade and things like that, even then, your lore needs to be told through legend rather than like actually giving it to you verbatim. There needs to be plausible deniability in your lore. You need to let the people reading it make their own conclusions about your lore and trust them to get there. I did that on Tuesday, and it was the most rewarding thing I've ever seen. Like, I've ever done in the hobby in terms of doing lore stuff, right? I laid out some breadcrumbs for people to follow, and people followed them. Some people to the right conclusion, some people to the wrong conclusion. But it generated a lot of discussion and interest in that chapter. And I'm telling you now, I've had more interest and emails about the Iron Talons since that video than I ever did for the Astral Blades, when I just gave you the lore verbatim. Yeah. That's how you write 40k lore. Keep ambiguous. Keep a central line, and you need to know what the truth is. So you, the writer, know what the truth is, and you write around that all the way down. So you leave the hints in there. You leave the breadcrumbs there for people to follow to get to the truth themselves. That's what 40k is all about, and that will make your lore seem like it's from 40k. Okay? Cool. Right. So, there is also a very real feeling of missing out when you're focusing on a certain part of the 40k setting when there is so much else out there. It's insane. If we take those feelings, then we throw imposter syndrome into the mix, the feeling that anything you write is complete tripe and nobody will ever read it. Here is the thing though, and here's the thing I want you to remember about imposter syndrome when it comes to writing your lore. Nobody has to. Nobody has to ever read it. All your lore is, as a thing, and remember this, all it is a crystallization of your own thoughts and passions for your project. That's it. Your first idea is almost always the best when it comes to projects like this. Sure, what you read about another chapter might be cool, but be careful not to start your entire project over because of something you found was cool elsewhere. Don't rejig your Word-Bearers Horus Heresy army to be World Eaters simply because you read First Heretic, then thought it was cool, then you read Betrayer and thought that was equally cool, and now you want to do World Eaters. Don't do that. Instead, if you have to, combine the two ideas into something completely new. Add to the ideas you are already using. Make your Word-Bearers weird berserker outcasts of the Legion who are quite liked by the World Eaters. Done. Right? You've now kept your project, you've added to it, and you've not started again. Augment what you're already doing, don't start over. This may seem like a really weird thing to say to somebody who's, not that creative. I'm telling you now, creative people will hear that and go, yeah, that's a good idea. Because that's literally how we think. We're alchemists. We are story alchemists. This is what we do, right? And most of us would rather start from scratch and create a potion from scratch rather than throwing things into the cauldron and seeing what sticks. Whenever imposter syndrome makes you restart a project from scratch, I think it's like folding a piece of cardboard. It's hardest to do the first time. with every project. Folding that piece of cardboard. And after that, it's all too easy to fold and just start over again and again in a horrible cycle without ever finishing anything. And eventually, your passion for your hobby project will wane and you'll drop it all together to move on to something else. You need to develop a really good response to finishing projects. Of being like, that's done. I don't need to do that anymore, right? Move on to the next thing. And maybe write another edition of what you just wrote years down the line. But for now, it's done. Here's for you painters out there. Painting is another issue entirely. And an expensive one. Because unlike writers, like as a writer, I just delete some words and I write some more words. I'm paying for it in time. You painters are paying for it in time and models and paints and sometimes even brushes and glues, right? When you think you've done something wrong, you're expending more energy and more resources, more money in correcting your mistakes because you have that imposter syndrome that your models aren't as good as other people's. You've all had that feeling. It's a sinking feeling of watching a painting YouTuber go over their techniques and colour schemes with their models and then it hits you. I've done my models incorrectly, or I could have done this so much better. No, stop. Each model you do is a journey in getting better. If you have new skills now, then paint entirely new models with them first before heading back over old ground. That way you will have something cool to look at as a finished model and then can go back to your older models at your leisure. Never let your imposter syndrome trick you into cycling through the same models again and again. It really is the bane of most people and is a real problem when it comes to Warhammer on YouTube. It creates that imposter syndrome. But just remember this. If you forget anything else in this video and you're sitting there and you're thinking my models aren't as good as this guy on YouTube, just remember this. Less than 1% of people in the hobby are good enough painters to have a successful YouTube channel. Are you one of that less than 1%? If you said no, congratulations, welcome to the 99%. We have cookies here and low expectations. Take your seat. That's what we are. We're normal people. We're normal hobbyists. We may do models that people think are cool. People think that the Iron Talons are cool when I show them. But my Iron Talons are not heavy metal level painting. Nowhere near. They're not even, YouTube level painting really. They're just decent looking models that look cool on a tabletop. That was enough for me. But it took me years to, one, get over the fear of painting. Because even when I started working at Games Workshop, I was terrified of painting. I was an okay painter at best, but I was terrified of it. And it's only then that my manager literally sat me down and said, listen, I don't care how good of a painter you are. I care that you sell models. I care that you have passion. I care that you want other people to be in the hobby because you want them to have fun, like you. That's what I care about. I don't care about whether you can edge highlight properly. I really don't. And nobody in the hobby really cares as well. Because we have people who do that and we have people who don't do that. I don't care. As long as you're in the hobby, you're having fun, and that fun is going to other people. That's what matters. I don't give people a medal for participating ever. I'm not one of those guys. Right? There are winners and losers in life. I used to have to get used to that fact. But the fact of the matter is, this is one of the rare occasions where there are no losers. You get your models, and as long as your passion's shining through in your models, I don't give a shit what they look like. And anybody who does give a shit what they look like, I'm afraid they do belong here, because nobody truly doesn't belong here. It's for everybody. But those people, those aren't the kind of people you'd want a good opinion from anyway. Because most of them are anal assholes. Or the Horus Heresy players. Hey! I'm kidding. There are certain parts of the hobby where they will literally be like, yeah, your painting needs to be at this standard or you can't play. That's fine. Go and play somewhere else. Go and play somewhere else. Everybody has their own little niche. Not everybody has to acquiesce to who you are and what your deal is, alright? Go and play somewhere else. So, that's the thing. You need to look at your models and realise you're not one of the 1%. If you're one of the 99%, give yourself a fucking break. That imposter syndrome sitting on your shoulder will chase you away from the hobby quicker than any bully can. Honestly. Imposter syndrome is bad at the best of times, but when it seeps into a hobby, that is an absolute tragedy. Because you can have imposter syndrome at your job, you know, at your church, wherever you go to. You can feel like you don't belong or you don't deserve to be there. You can even have imposter syndrome as a parent. Yeah. You can literally be standing there with your kid and go, I shouldn't be doing this. I'm a knobhead. I've done that before. Like, I shouldn't be doing this. I'm a dick. I'm an idiot. What am I doing here with a child? Like, what am I supposed to teach this child? Right? Then you have your come to Jesus moment and you're alright, you know what I mean? But like, you do get those moments, even with your own child, where you're like, what am I doing? Right? But imposter syndrome is bad at the best of times, but when it seeps into a hobby that you're supposed to enjoy, that's a tragedy, man. And I mean that sincerely. It can cause you to drop what you are doing, even beyond the indecision we spoke about on Tuesday. Indecision, that we spoke about on Tuesday, can be a funny thing. It's a, oh, silly me, starting with another hobby idea, ha ha ha, you know, feeling, because you want to. You find something else cool. So you're indecisive and you go and do something else. Imposter syndrome is worse. It's doing that same thing, starting a new hobby or idea, not because you want to, but because you feel you need to, so you can reach that higher plane of creative feeling. So you can taste that feeling of creative nirvana that we are all chasing deep down. To create something so good, it leaves your friends jealous of your talents. The thing is, there is a piece to knowing what you do is enough because you did it. Not because it's any kind of quality or can blow other people's work at the water. My friends who aren't into Warhammer are amazed at what I do with my models and lore. I have a friend who thinks I'm some sort of alien because humans shouldn't be able to create intricate settings and entertaining pieces of fiction the way I do so quickly in his eyes. But I unironically think anything I produce is shit, and that someday somebody will come into my office, tap me on the shoulder and tell me to stop what I'm doing so that somebody who's actually talented can come in and do their thing in my place. That's how I feel every day, and that's why I hardly ever finish any hobby projects. Alright? That's what I think. Imposter syndrome is much worse than hobby indecision. Those are two. Imposter syndrome comes under the umbrella of hobby indecision, I think, but it's something that I suffer from the most, and I hate it. The same thing, I'm going to be a bit personal here, right? The same thing goes for YouTube, and it's a battle I fight every day with every upload. I often wonder why people are even here listening to a guy like me, especially when I get bad feedback. People seem to think you're just some invincible guy on here, but that's not the case. And a lot of people will say, well, hey, you put yourself out there, North. Man up, dude. And that is completely true. My choices are my own, but my channel is a personal one, discussing things in the Warhammer hobby that are not spoken about elsewhere. We have a niche here, and it's a seriously fraught set of personal subjects that I try to do my best with. I slip up at times, sure, and I'll never apologise unless I say something completely beyond the pale, which I can never, see me saying, right? But I own my own beliefs and what I live by because they've all served me well, and I've created a really nice life for myself. I want my brothers in the hobby to be able to do that too, to have that as well, and so this channel exists. Why did I say all that? Well, the point is, even with such a seemingly altruistic motive, I still feel like I'm a fraud. I feel completely unworthy of your time and your attention, and especially your money. Thank you, Patreon chads, by the way. So, if you ever feel like your painting isn't good enough, or your writing stinks in Warhammer, just remember this video and consider this. Are you harming anybody with your creativity? Are you enjoying what you're doing? And will getting this creative energy out of your soul be worthwhile regardless? The answer to all of those, all of the time, if you're engaging in a creative hobby, is almost certainly yes. Apart from the hurting people part, right? Are you hurting anybody? No. Are you enjoying what you're doing? Yes. And will getting this creative energy out of your soul be worthwhile to you regardless of whether anybody reads it or not, or likes it or not? Yes. The answer to 2 of those 3 is yes. If that's so, then carry on. You are not the imposter you think you are, my friend. And you belong here, and you should write your shit and paint your models, because everybody wants to see them. Alright? Cool. That's me for the day. 2 nice rants this week. Who would have thought it? That's me for the day. I'll be back tomorrow with some more Hobby Nightmares. Tomorrow, we do have some normal Hobby Nightmares mixed in with some personal advice things. There's no relationship stuff tomorrow. It's all about, life advice and depression and anxiety and shit like that. So we'll be doing that tomorrow. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Have a really good one. Bye now. See ya.